Let's have an interview with this guy, Ray Blasingame, the legend.
Horticultural specialist here at the Honey Museum. That's what I was hired on in, that's what I still am.
Who are you? What's your name?
Ray Blasingame. And I've been working here for 13 years. I originally started bonsai probably when I was 12 or 13. I saw them in San Gabriel Nursery. My grandmother used to drive us to buy plants and bought Sunset Western garden book and on bonsai and gave them a try. All those died, but later on, when I had time, I signed up for Melba Tucker's class at Royal High School in El Monte, and that was in '89, and that's when I started figuring out how to do things. And so I've been doing it pretty seriously since '89.
And then, did you get your mom into bonsai, or mom got into you in bonsai?
I started it when I was like 8 years old.
Okay.
And she started in '89, again with Melba's class, just about a week before her because she was open that weekend.
Okay.
That was at one of the local high school classes. And that's how we got started. So we both started.
Pretty much at the same time, huh?
Within a week. And Ted Madsen was a student in her class, and Melba entered us. Ted, he started teaching the following fall at his house. So we were in his first class, and I stayed with him for about 5 years, 5-6 years. So basically I learned from Melba and Ted. Into the various club meetings, which I learned a lot from, and the conventions, but also horticulture at Mount Sac and Cal Poly Pomona, or park administration at Cal Poly Pomona. But so I have a fairly solid ground in
Your background,
horticulture.
yeah. And then, if you had a chance to give yourself, your younger self, an advice, what would that be?
I'm not sure what to say there.
You can travel back in time, 20 years, 30 years, the beginning.
Yeah. No, everything worked out pretty well for this. You know, I love my job, love working here. Great job. Everything is, at least for me, has worked out quite well. So.
No advice for your younger self, huh?
Nope. I might have started a couple years earlier, but by that time, things just worked out. And I would have when I graduated from high school. That was the end of the house plant fad, and you couldn't get a job. It was just nobody could get a job. So about 6 years later, the house plant fad was over. I saw classes at Mount Sac, and of course Melba Tucker's class a couple of years ago, and scheduling just a couple of years after when scheduling just worked out. So that's the only thing I'd say is I might have started a few years earlier.
Awesome. And then let's look at a couple of your trees, and then we'll call it a day.
When I collected about 30 years ago on a Kofu Kai dig, when Harry Harrell used to lead them out to Jawbone Canyon. And I donated here about 20 years ago. Since then, I worked on it very little, so it's mostly the volunteers that work on it. Mitch Mitzi just recently finished wiring it, so although there's a few branches that didn't all work well, it's turned out pretty nicely after his rewiring.
What drew you to this tree when you collected it?
It had a big trunk. It was 5 feet from the road, and it was 100 feet from where we parked, as opposed to all the other trees which you had to walk a quarter mile from. That's why. It was just a huge shrub that nobody had looked in because it was covered in foliage. I looked inside, I saw a nice trunk, and I was able to cut off a large amount of it, and it survived. So I was able to pull up the truck 5 feet away from where you're from.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was an easy one. The rest, I had to walk several hundred yards carrying them back, but this one was just a simple one.
Awesome.
So I did extensive amount of carving on it. All these branches here had live foliage, and I wanted to keep live foliage on them, but they died. And really the only two branches that survived were this here and the apex, and they're just little 1/8 inch branches 25 years ago or 20 years ago.
And you kept the foliage, the original foliage on it, I see.
Yeah, it's still, and so took forever, but originally they turned into this. So worked out eventually.
Awesome.
So I purchased this cork oak about 30 years ago from the Baikoen Bonsai Club sale. Ed Lawrence, who's a collector in San Fernando Valley, he used to dig up a lot of California junipers, but he also went nursery shopping and he'd buy big trees and cut them back. And so I sold this one. It was like $40.
It wasn't this size, I presume.
No, at one time I could put my hand, reach my fingers all the way around, and down here was probably only about this wide. So it's grown a lot in 30 years.
In 30 years, like 12, more than 12, 18 inches?
Yeah, probably, yeah. So it just had a very basic canopy, but all the branches that you see here, plus a few more, were on the original thing that Ed Lawrence did his basic design with. So we've had a bit of issue with it. There's been some dieback. It was probably in too much shade, and maybe a few other things going wrong. Maybe a fungus, I'm not sure what. But it's starting to recover, and so I think in a couple of years we'll start getting the nice crown again.
What drew you to this tree? I mean, in a sale, there's a lot of trees to look at. So what drew you as an artist or as a person purchasing? What drew to you?
$40 with a big trunk, and I wanted a cork oak. So that was it. I mean, $40 more than 25 years ago was
it's a good deal. Yeah, that's a good amount of money.
Bargain. So couldn't pass it up. And it survived. So
that's pretty cool.
the only reason why I donated it to the Huntington is it was just getting too hard for me to load up in the truck to put on the show. So I started moving towards smaller trees that are easy for me to take to the shows. So transferred over here, and it's done pretty well here.
Awesome.
Baikoen donated 10 of these about 13 years ago when I first started working here. They're just 1 gallon, skinny little trees. 6 of them died very quickly, but these 4 survived. And you know, Monterey cypresses are tough to keep alive down here. There's a fungus that they're not able to protect themselves against when in hot, arid climates. So far though, these have done well, and they're very easy to grow. I basically shear them back almost a haircut 3 or 4 times a year. Every once in a while, about once a year, I'll go through and do a more careful thinning out, and they need to be rewired, but I rewire them every couple of years. So the fast growers, I've seen them for sale in the local nurseries for $30 or $40 for 1-inch trunks, and I've heard people got them for less up in Monterey. So
is there they like the moist, they like the coastal kind of the
moist climates. They say here eventually you get a fungus in here, and it's probably because of the dry, hot climate. They're not able to protect themselves against that fungus. In the cooler climate, they're able to protect themselves against that.
Oh, that's interesting.
So far we haven't had it, so you know, I definitely wouldn't spend a lot of money down in Southern California on one of these, but you know, I've seen them for $20 to $30 here, so they're worth the gamble. And of course, that's what botanic gardens do. They test things out. So I've been very happy with these. They smell good. They're easy to work on.
Is this the one that smells like lemon? Or no, that's a different type.
No,
that was a different. That's a Leland. I think it was a Leland cypress.
I don't know what it smells like, but it definitely has a nice scent to it. Californias are my favorite. California juniper is my favorite, but this is the second favorite when I'm pruning them. So it's been a great one as far as I'm concerned. As long as we keep them alive, and had them for 13 years now. So definitely one worth trying if you can find one that's cheap.
So you're saying again, you do shohi now?
Yeah, I work on the shohins almost exclusively.
Why is that?
Well, they hired me to work on the shohins because Ben was still here, and they just had me do that. And then Ted, when he was curator, he did most of the bigger ones, and I stuck to the shohins. Now I work on both sizes, but I still do the shohins almost exclusively.
It's kind of divide and conquer the workload a little bit.
Actually, when I was hired, it wasn't my first choice. I actually preferred the medium size, but now I really like these because they're just so easy to work on. They're so easy to carry, easy to show. I mean, in most cases, in 15 minutes, I'm done with it for the day instead of spending hours and hours and hours bent over a huge one. So, and they're really easy to take to the show and set up on the stand. So I actually like them now.
So you went from big trees to medium trees to now the small trees.
Well, everybody wanted a big tree, and that's what I started out with. But they're just hard to load up. I really did not like when I put them on the expensive tabletop and somebody moving, you get a scratch on it. And the smaller trees, they pick the tree, and the bigger ones, they just drag it across. So drove me crazy. And it was just easy to put the smaller trees in the car without damaging my car or damaging the tree. So that's what I tended to move to. So I have a lot at home that are about 16 inches, 18 inches tall. I have a couple more that are close to 3 feet, but there's only a couple left that are that tall. And I probably won't get rid of those for a long time. I still like them, but the 18 inches are the ones I take to the shows. So
Awesome.